Have you ever felt like no matter how much you do, it's never quite enough? You hit every deadline. You double-check every detail. You show up for work, for your family, for your friends, even when you're running on empty. And still, there's this quiet voice in your head whispering, you could have done better. You brush it off, smile, keep going, because that's what you do. But deep down, you're tired. Not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. It's soul deep. It's the exhaustion of always being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who holds it all together while no one notices you're falling apart. If you're a Virgo with life path 4, this might hit a little too close to home. You've spent your whole life trying to build something solid, a stable career, a well-run home, a sense of order in a world that often feels chaotic. And yet, you often feel unseen. People admire your strength, but they rarely ask how you're really doing. They rely on your consistency, but forget you have limits too. And maybe, just maybe, the very perfection you've been praised for is the reason you feel so alone. So let me ask you this. What if the thing you think makes you worthy of love is actually the thing keeping you from receiving it? Let me tell you about someone. Her name's Eliza. She's the kind of person everyone counts on. At work, she's the one who fixes the last-minute mess-ups, the one who stays late even when no one asks. At home, she remembers everyone's birthdays, checks in on her aging parents, and keeps the fridge full without ever needing a thank you. She's precise, thoughtful, and calm on the outside. But inside? Inside, she's drowning in expectations no one sees. Eliza is a Virgo with a life path number 4. Which means she was practically born with a blueprint in her hands, a mental checklist that never ends. There's always something to improve, something to fix, something to hold together. And for years she wore that perfection like armor. She believed, if I do everything right, maybe they'll love me, maybe they'll see me. But here's the thing, they never did. When her co-worker forgot a deadline, Eliza covered for her, again. No one noticed. When her partner came home angry from work, she didn't complain, just made dinner and stayed quiet. She told herself she didn't mind. But one night she sat alone in her car after dropping off dinner to her sick neighbor. And for the first time in years, she cried. Not because anyone hurt her, but because no one saw her. No one asked, "Are you okay?" No one offered to help her carry the weight she'd silently been holding for years. You see, people like Eliza are masters at hiding their wounds behind competence. They smile, organize, plan, execute. But beneath all that structure is a human heart that aches for softness, for care, for someone to say, you don't have to do it all. And maybe you know this feeling too. Maybe you've been praised your whole life for how capable you are, but no one ever stopped to ask if you're happy. Maybe you're the one who remembers the little things for everyone, but forgets yourself. Maybe you're the one who carries it all and still feels invisible. It's not weakness to want to be seen. It's not selfish to want to be held. And if you've ever sat quietly, wishing someone would just see the real you behind the perfection, this story isn't just about Eliza, it's about you too. Have you ever wondered why you are the way you are? Why you can't relax unless everything's in its place? Why your mind is always running a checklist, even when you're supposed to be resting? Why you're the one people turn to when things fall apart, even when you're the one quietly breaking? It's not random. It's written in the stars and in your numbers. Let's start with Virgo. Virgos are known for being the fixers, the healers, the quiet warriors. You notice what others miss. You see the chipped paint on the wall, the unspoken tension in the room, the small detail that makes something go from good to perfect. You're ruled by Mercury, the planet of intellect and communication. But unlike Gemini, Mercury's other child, your brilliance isn't loud. It's quiet, refined, grounded. You don't just talk. You analyze. You don't just react. You respond. Your energy is like a garden, intentional, cultivated, beautiful, but it takes work. Now add Life Path 4 into the mix, the builder, the foundation, the backbone. People with Life Path 4 are here to create structure in a world full of chaos. You came into this life with a mission to build something real, not flashy, not temporary, but something that lasts. You value loyalty, discipline, and logic. You don't mind working hard. In fact, something in you thrives on it. But here's where it gets tricky. When Virgo's perfectionism meets life path 4's need for control and structure, you get someone who sets impossibly high standards for themselves and then blames themselves when they can't meet them. You get someone who becomes so focused on keeping everything together, they forget what it feels like to just be. One woman I worked with, let's call her Dana, once said, "I don't know who I am without a to-do list." She was a Virgo, with life path bed. She had built a beautiful life, a stable job, a well-organized home. Everyone admired her, but inside, she felt like her entire identity was tied to what she did, not who she was. And that's the trap, isn't it? This soul design, Virgo plus 4, is powerful. You have the gifts of clarity, devotion, and unshakable strength. But when those gifts are not honored, when your inner world is never nurtured, they become chains. You become the caretaker who's never cared for, the achiever who's never celebrated, the perfectionist who's never enough, not even for themselves. But let me be clear, this isn't your fault. It's the shadow side of your design. The very traits that make you extraordinary can also make you exhausted. So what's the answer? It's not to change who you are. It's to remember why you came here. You didn't come here just to do, you came here to be, to build a life that isn't just well-structured, but also full of peace, softness, and meaning. Understanding your soul design isn't about boxing yourself into labels. It's about coming home to yourself. There's a wound you carry that almost no one sees. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't scream. It hides behind clean houses, perfect spreadsheets, thoughtful texts, and reliable routines. But it's there. It's the ache of never feeling truly loved unless you're doing something for someone else, unless you're needed, unless you're perfect. This is the invisible wound of Virgo with life path 4. You were probably the responsible one, even as a kid. Maybe you learned early on that love wasn't given freely. It had to be earned. Maybe your worth was measured by how much you helped, how well you behaved, how little trouble you caused. You were praised for being so mature, so helpful, so organized, and you carried that into adulthood. Now people say you're so strong, so put together, so dependable, but no one asks, who holds you? I once had a client named Marcus, a Virgo 4, of course. He had a career that looked flawless on paper. Project manager for a major company, always one step ahead. At home, he paid the bills, cooked the meals, handled every crisis like a pro. And yet one day he told me something that cracked me open. He said, "Sometimes I wish I could get sick, just so someone would take care of me for once." He didn't actually want to be unwell. He was just exhausted. Exhausted from always being the one who had it together. Exhausted from carrying the emotional load for everyone around him. Because here's what no one tells you about being the strong one. You don't get checked on. You don't get comforted. People assume you're okay because you make sure they are. But under that strength is a heart quietly whispering, "I'm tired. I'm lonely. I just want someone to see me, not for what I do, but for who I am." This wound isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It shows up when you scroll through your phone, hoping someone texts first. It's in the way you pretend you're fine, because asking for help feels like weakness. It's in the little sigh you let out before putting on your "I've got this" smile one more time. And maybe the most painful part, you don't even know you're hurting, because you've built your whole life around avoiding it. You organize, you fix, you perfect, because sitting still, feeling unloved, feels unbearable. But you can't heal what you don't name. And this wound, this ache to be loved for simply being, not doing, it deserves your attention, your compassion. So let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you let yourself fall apart? Without guilt, without apology? When was the last time you let someone see you? When you weren't performing, achieving, or helping? This isn't weakness. This is truth. And the truth is, you don't have to earn love by being perfect. You are always worthy. Even when you're messy, even when you're tired, even when you're not useful to anyone. Maybe it's time someone said that to you. So I will. You are enough, even when no one needs you. Sometimes, change doesn't come in a dramatic moment. It doesn't always look like a breakdown or a bold declaration. Sometimes, it's quiet, subtle, like one deep breath that feels different from the rest, like a small voice inside finally saying, I can't keep doing this. For Jenna, another Virgo with life path 4 I worked with, that moment came while folding laundry. Yeah, just laundry. She was standing in the middle of her living room, surrounded by half-folded towels, 3 unread emails in the back of her mind, and a birthday gift she still needed to wrap. Her partner was on the couch, her phone was buzzing, her body was aching, and suddenly, she stopped. She just stood there, and for the first time in a long time, she asked herself, what would happen if I just didn't finish this right now? That thought felt dangerous, irresponsible, selfish even. But it was the first time she realized she was tired of being perfect, tired of earning her worth with every task, tired of hiding her exhaustion behind productivity, tired of being the one everyone leaned on, while never letting herself lean on anyone. That's what a turning point feels like. Not loud, but honest, like truth finally catching up with you in the quiet. Maybe you've had a moment like that too, where you felt the weight of your own life and realized you couldn't carry it like this anymore. Not because you're weak, but because you're human, and in that moment, something shifts. You begin to wonder, what if I took care of myself the way I take care of everyone else? That's where the awakening begins, not with fireworks, but with a whisper, you matter too. Awakening isn't always some grand, dramatic moment. It doesn't look like quitting your job or flying to Bali or deleting every contact in your phone. More often, it's something softer, gentler, quieter. It starts with a pause. For Caleb, another Virgo, with life path 4, that pause came one Sunday morning. He'd woken up early as usual. He had a list already forming in his head: laundry, groceries, bills, meal prep, check in on his mom. But for some reason that day, he didn't move. He just sat there, in bed, staring out the window at the morning sun breaking through the blinds. And he thought, what if I just let myself be here for 5 minutes? No rushing, no doing, just being. That was his awakening. No music, no tears, just a small, quiet rebellion. A choice to exist, not as someone's helper, fixer, organizer, but as himself, a human. Tired, tender, alive. And in that silence, something cracked open. He realized how long he'd been operating on autopilot, how many years he'd spent proving himself through productivity, how rarely he asked himself what he needed, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. Because when you're a Virgo with life path 4, your instinct is to hold it all together. But what if holding it together is what's tearing you apart? That's what awakening is. The moment you recognize your own worth, without conditions. The moment you stop measuring your value by your usefulness. The moment you say, I deserve to be loved, even when I'm not doing anything for anyone. That realization can feel scary, because when you've been living your whole life being the strong one, choosing softness can feel like weakness, but it's not. Softness is strength. Rest is sacred. Boundaries are acts of self-love. And maybe for the first time, you allow yourself to say no. No to the favor you didn't want to do. No to the last-minute request that would have cost you your peace. No to the pressure of being everything for everyone. And you say yes, quietly, fiercely, to yourself. Yes to journaling. Yes to taking a walk without your phone. Yes to doing something pointless but joyful. Painting, singing, staring at the sky. Yes to being imperfect. And still enough. This is not selfish. This is sacred. You weren't meant to live a life that only exists to serve others. You weren't put here just to be reliable. You were put here to feel, to grow, to breathe, to be messy and radiant and fully human. You are allowed to care deeply for others, but you are also allowed to choose yourself. The awakening is not a destination. It's a decision you make. over and over, every time you remember. You are worthy of love, peace, and rest, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. For so long, you thought strength looked like control, like getting everything right, like having a plan, a backup plan, and a backup for the backup, like never breaking down, never needing help, never missing a step. But here's the truth: that's not strength, that's survival. And you were made for something deeper. The sacred path of a Virgo with life, path 4, isn't about perfection. It's about foundation, yes, but not the kind made of constant doing. It's the kind built on inner peace, quiet resilience, and self-honoring choices. True strength is knowing when to pause. True strength is setting boundaries and saying, "No, I matter too." It's letting go of the need to fix everything. It's realizing that the world won't fall apart if you take a break. And even if it does, maybe it's not yours to hold together in the first place. I remember one woman, Grace. She used to say, "If I don't do it, no one will." Until one day, she stopped. She let things be imperfect. She let dinner be late. She let someone else take over the meeting. And the world didn't collapse. In fact, she felt lighter, freer, more herself. That's sacred strength, not the kind that impresses others, but the kind that lets you breathe. Because when you honor yourself, your limits, your needs, your softness, you become unshakable. Not because you control everything, but because you're finally rooted in who you are, not in what you do. And that kind of strength? It doesn't burn you out, it heals you. So if you've spent your whole life proving yourself, maybe now is the time to come home to yourself. To step onto the sacred path that was always waiting. The one where you're allowed to be whole, even when you're not perfect. So now you know, you're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've spent a lifetime carrying what no one else could see. Because you've mistaken responsibility for love, perfection for safety, control for strength. But what if today you tried something different? What if today you put your hand over your heart right now and whispered, "I am allowed to rest"? Say it again, slowly. I am allowed to rest. Because you are, you always were. You are not here to prove yourself. You are not here to fix everyone's mess, hold everyone's weight, or live a life that looks good but feels empty. You are here to feel, to grow, to connect, to love, and be loved without earning it. And that starts with one small act, not a grand gesture, not a total life overhaul, just one thing. Maybe tonight you put your phone on silent and go to bed early, not because you finished everything, but because you're done enough. Maybe tomorrow you say no to something and yes to yourself. Maybe you buy yourself flowers, or sit in the sun, or write in a journal, or cry, or breathe. That's where healing begins. Not in changing who you are, but in finally honoring who you've always been. And if a part of you feels guilty even thinking about that, it's okay. You've been trained to put everyone else first. But healing means unlearning. It means giving yourself the love you so freely give to others. So I want to invite you to something. Not a program, not a challenge, not a fix, just a path. Your path. A path where you get to build a life that supports you, not just the people around you. Where you get to be soft and whole and free. Where you get to ask, what would it look like if I loved myself enough to stop proving my worth? That question could change everything. And if no one's told you lately, you are worthy of love. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Even when you're resting, even when you're messy, even when you're not holding it all together, especially then. So take a breath. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you finally come first. And if this message touched something in you, don't just move on. Pause. Let it sink in. Then take one small step today to honor the most sacred person in your life, you.